And now I'd like to bring on fan-sided editor Josh Hill for a segment we call A Song of Dan and Josh. Josh has never read the Song of Ice and Fire books. I have read them all multiple times. We're going to talk about them, walk through them chapter by chapter, pick them apart. What makes them work? Why are they good? Why aren't they good? If they're never not good, which they never are. We're still on A Game of Thrones, the first book in the series.
Oh, yeah.
And today we read Tyrion 7 and Sansa 5.
Yeah.
Josh, how are you?
I'm good. Hello, everybody. Hello, Julie. Thanks for sending in that Catelyn thing. We looked it over. It was
we did
really
look at
good.
it, Julie. It was very cool.
I was really
I
excited.
think we're going to keep it till next week because there's a Catelyn chapter we'll do next week. So we're going to address your comment then. But I love that you sent it in, and I love the idea of having discussion with you guys.
Yeah.
Anybody wants to send in their comments about our talk, feel free. We will totally talk about it.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's get into the chapters for this week.
Let's do it.
Tyrion 7. Tyrion is with the VII clansmen.
Mm-hmm.
Clans, I can't say that. With
Clansmen.
they're the clans people, and they bring him to Tywin Lannister's kind of army encampment.
Yeah.
What goes down in this chapter? What stood out to you about it, Josh?
It's still, well, first of all, you put this in your notes too, and I noticed it too, the Monty Python-esque nature of these guys.
That's
like,
what it said to me.
Like the Holy Grail type. I was getting like Holy Grail vibes from these like doofuses who are like, they're like one guy didn't one guy get his job leading the group because he poked his own eye out?
There's a description of one of the Vale clan's like tribe leaders,
Yeah.
and Tyrion says that the burned men, the way they show strength, they cut off parts of like they wound themselves, and that proves they're tough. And the leader poked out his own eye, which I mean I guess I get it. That means you're like tougher than anybody, but also you're a warrior. Don't you need to see?
Yeah.
And then he had that thing about like they all get together when they talk. They think that everybody needs to have their say, so we can just go on. It's like an Entmoot. They just go on forever and ever and ever. And there's just something kind of silly and goofy about them that did like say Monty Python to me when I was reading it.
I also thought of there's a scene in The Simpsons where it's the episode where Homer calls up all of the old Simpsons relatives, the distant relatives, because Lisa thinks at some age she's going to start getting dumb.
That's a good one,
the
yeah.
Simpson gene. And they all look like Homer, and she looks out the window being like, there's hope, and she looks out and they're all in a circle and two of them are wearing pots on their heads and running at each other. And that's what I thought of this too. I could just see them around like the encampment doing like, oh, poke my eye out, and it's like, oh, cut my finger off, and like all these things. So, but they're warriors. They're the clans people, not clansmen.
I'm not sure if it was Tyrion's situation, but they had a lot of fun with them.
They did.
I mean, like Tyrion had some good bon mots here. Like he described one as what did it said? Shagga, son of Dolph, is the one who looks like Casterly Rock with hair, something like that. Oh, and then they're talking about the burn men. They all cut stuff off, and then Tyrion's like, "I wonder what their king burned off." To Bronn. Bronn's like, then like grabs his crotch because they're making jokes.
Oh, classic Braun.
And also, I like the idea of Tyrion's like leading them through Tywin's camp, and there's a description of them like just like staring agog. Because like they'd never seen a tent before.
Yeah.
They'd never seen like anything this advanced, even though it's not that advanced. Mm-hmm. It's just like they actually put up like tents and pavilions, and they have armor and knights. And which brings us to the serious side of it, which is Tyrion's trying to impress them.
Yep.
Because the point of this chapter, I feel, besides the comedy, is the power play nature of it. Mm-hmm. It starts out right at the top. There's confusion. Like no one seems to know. Is Tyrion leading these Vale clans people? Has he become the person who's like do they work for him now? Or is he their hostage and they're holding him ransom until Tywin can pay them the weapons and the armor they want? And it's because the clans don't really talk to each other, and because they have that weird meeting thing, no one really knows.
Yeah.
And Tyrion kind of does a old leadership strategy. If you don't know who's the leader, just act like the leader until it becomes true.
Yeah.
Is basically what he does. So they have this thing where they're like, you will take us to your father. And he's like, okay, you, come with me, let's go. And then he just like rides off, and they're like, I guess we got to follow him. So he's trying to, it's not, so he sees that there is no real leader chosen. So he's like, I'm just going to act like the leader until I am the leader.
Yeah.
And they kind of have to comply. And then seeing the crazy technology of Tywin's camp reinforces that. I think he says, better and better. The more impressed they were with the power of the Lannisters, the easier they would be to command. So it's this very interesting sort of nebulous power vacuum, and the whole chapter is about trying to fill it, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. When Tyrion was riding past too, I just had like in my mind, there's like the cutaway of one of the guys being like, "Oh, that guy's so serious about you. Cut off his own legs," you know, the imp.
Totally.
Perfect comedy. But yeah, the power struggle between the two, with Tyrion and Tywin, their relationship on the show, and I'm assuming in the books here, is fascinating. Just
it's also pretty faithful. Like the show does their relationship, I think, very close to the books.
Yeah, because at his heart, it's, you know, there's the line, and you wrote it down too, about like every time Tywin looks at Tyrion, or Tyrion feels his
he's really aware of his deformities and shortcomings.
Yeah, and it's like at his heart, you know, as back and forth as they go, I feel like he's just a guy who wants his father to love him.
Totally.
The way that he is, and Tywin is never, ever, 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 ever going to be that guy, which is also kind of why there's this. It was interesting to me, the power struggle, because he's almost showing off. He's showing off Tywin.
Oh, totally. Like, look, I have these clans people who follow me now, sort of.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, the old Fredo from Godfather, you know, like, I'm not stupid, I'm smart. And he's like, look, and he's proving it. He's like, I'm smart. Look, I can corral these. He
actually is smart. Fredo's a dunder.
Yeah, it's true. But like that, I was thinking of that too, because he's like, I can corral these mountain doofuses into being. Me, yeah, but he's like, I'm smarter than these guys. And in Tywin's eyes, or at least in Tyrion's eyes, he thinks that Tywin sees him as just another mountain guy who will poke his eye out.
Which he kind of does.
Yeah,
you
and
can tell that.
Tyrion's like, no, I'm way up here, and these guys are way below me. I'm more on your level than you want to give me credit for. So that's why I think that was kind of a powerful gesture for Tyrion to go after there. I
have to turn off the iPad so I can't see your comments now.
Oh no!
But okay, I'll say something else that you can talk, and I'll put it back on. Yeah, I completely agree with you that it's about that, and also then when Tyrion takes them in, continue with that power play theme, Tywin flips it again, and then he fills the vacuum immediately, because then he steps in and says, "Oh, who are your friends?" And Tyrion introduces them, and they're funny too. Like, here's Shagga, son of Dolph, and Dolph, son of Dolph, and stuff like that. And then Tywin steps in and says, "If you fight for me, we will give you more weapons and armor." And then they're like, "Why should we fight for you? We have your son. You think that's what we want." And he's like, "Oh, okay, I get it. The Northern Warriors are really, really fierce and angry. I get it. You don't want to fight them. It's fine." They're like, "No, we'll fight the Northern Warriors. We'll totally fight the Northern Warriors." Which is, again, kind of Monty Python-esque and just kind of funny. And it works. And I think Tyrion has a little thought up where he's like, "Oh, definitely done." So Tywin is stepping into the power vacuum that Tyrion stepped into earlier, which again kind of underlines that they are very similar. They both always look for the angle. They're both always trying to kind of fill vacuums, and they use their intelligence to do it. Yeah. Which just makes it, again, ironic that they have such an adversarial relationship. If they talked for a second, I think they discover that they are alike in a lot of ways, Tyrion and Tywin. Oh, yeah, and that's the tragedy, really, of the relationship, that is the tragedy. Is that they're so similar. And you could have, in an alternate universe, in an alternate Westeros, they make up and they come together and there's this big redemption moment, whereas we know that's not going to happen, which is the tragedy of Tyrion's never going to know his father loves him because his father doesn't love him. And it's not... You know, a lot of times these stories are told and we get some like romantic ending where the father realizes that his son is an extension of him, and he is going to love his son for who he is no matter what. And George R. R. Martin's basically like, nah, not here. We're not doing that here, which is true. It ends in the most humiliating way possible. And it's like, that's kind of heightened, Tywin's death, but like that's speaking to those stories don't always have happy endings. So we have these reflections of real life almost in Westeros, in this relationship of there's not always a cheesy, gooey center to these lost relationships. Sometimes they're just broken, and no matter how much we want them to come together, there's always going to be the heads butting. So true. Well, I will say, I never really thought like, oh, Tywin, just hug your son. I don't know. I guess I never like even got that far because he's just so cold to him. He is. But you're right. In another universe, they could have been like really good allies and friends, and just for whatever reason, I mean, because Tyrion, you know, his mom died in childbirth. Also, Tywin hates the idea of a dwarf for a son. I also like how he like makes references to Jaime and like, your brother's doing so great right now, covering himself in glory. Right. I can give you some guys. You won't botch it, will you? Like, it's clear who the favorite son is. Oh yeah. And then Jaime hates Tywin for his own reasons. So that family is just really unpleasant. Tony Roberts says, Tony Roberts. Oh, we got a lot of famous people watching this show. Spell Toni. No, so not that Tony Roberts. I think this chapter helps establish that Tyrion can be a leader and starts to build that aspect of him before we reach the Blackwater battle later on in the books. I think you're totally right, Tony. It's because, I mean, Tyrion hasn't really been a leader for much of his life. He's kind of bought into Tywin's, fiction of him as useless and worthless. And we're seeing the first steps, but he always had it in him. And he'll grow and grow and grow. And I think, as you said, hoping to gain some approval.
Yeah.
Even if he doesn't want to admit it to himself. And the tragedy is he never will. No. And then it'll be too late because Tyrion will be dead into it.
No validation.
No. Julie says, I always hoped Tyrion was going to come around a bit, but knew he was lacking good fathering skills. That is an understatement.
Julie's on the ball.
She definitely is, but we completely agree with you. Oh, and Emma thinks might be a bit of jealousy between them, which is possible too.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else about Tyrion VII?
Did you read Tywin's description as mutton chops? I thought it was mutton chops that he had. He's like balding with mutton chops. I was like, this is not what you look like on the show, man.
Charles Dance I thought they did a really good job with Tywin. You know, the spirit of him, but they definitely cut out his weird-ass haircut in the show. I'm just going to read the description. When his once thick golden hair begun to recede, Tywin had commanded his barber to shave his head. Lord Tywin would not believe in half measures. He razored his lip and chin as well, but kept his side whiskers, 2 great thickets of wiry golden hair that covered most of his cheeks from ear to jaw.
Yeah.
So he has like an Amish beard, Tywin, and a bald head. Yeah. Not how he was in the show. No. I think we would have laughed ourselves silly if he had that in the show. So good call on the part of HBO. All right, I'll move on to Sansa.
Let's do it, Sansa.
All right, Sansa 5. We are back in King's Landing. And I think this whole scene, chapter 6, in the Red Keep throne room, with Joffrey is holding his first session at court, which is just the way government works back then. A king sits in a chair, or a queen. People just come up to him and be like, I want this, yes or no. I want this, yes or no. Or in Joffrey's case, like, yes, no, or just behead him. And how does it go?
Well, and I also, before we get into that, just the commentary of that's how government works, and then it's run by a child. That's great. Barristan,
monarchies aren't good.
No.
For this reason. Because, you might get a good person. You might get someone like frickin' Joffrey.
Yeah.
You never tell.
You never know. So Barristan gets fired.
Yes, Barristan gets fired from the Kingsguard.
He causes a scene.
He does.
Quite a scene.
Takes off his armor, threatens to kill his Kingsguard compatriots.
Yeah. Joffrey gets a little...
says right up there, maybe Stannis will take your throne, then just walks out of there like a boss.
Yeah, and then Joffrey gets a little bummed out. He throws a little bit of a hissy fit, and he's like, come on.
He called me boy.
Yeah, he's got to respect me. It's like, all right, bud. And the Hound refuses to get knighted. That was that stood out to me. I was like, of course he's not going to want that. But
he hates knights and knighthood.
He does. But to me, this chapter was kind of about setting in motion Cersei's plan. This is Cersei moving the pieces on the chessboard. It was less about, and it kind of encapsulated to me what she's all about, the smoke and mirrors that she's all about. Because the chapter essentially, if you gloss it over and look at it, is Barristan Selmy gets fired, and it's
the Hound gets promoted.
The Hound gets promoted, and Joffrey throws a fit. Where it's underneath that, the context of it, of Cersei's moving these pieces into place.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's how she operates. That's how she's gone. That's how she plays the game. And we've seen it on the show. Everybody knows who she is, but nobody knows the moves that she's making. And Ned even was like, I don't know about this, and he figured it out. And of course, told her. That was stupid. But to me, this chapter was...
I'm going to kidnap you. Okay.
Right? This chapter is all about how Cersei operates, and it was like almost acted as a metaphor to me, or like it was interesting in that it wasn't about what it was actually about. And now we're moving into the mystery. We're kind of done with the noir Ned stuff, which was the case every time we went to.
Yeah, isn't it interesting that like we completely dropped Jon Arryn's murder? Like no one cares about it anymore because it never really mattered to begin with, and now the MacGuffin is over.
Yeah. Yeah, and the best part about it, too, is it's a chapter about a guy getting fired, about another guy throwing a fit, and another guy getting promoted, and the moves of Cersei, and it's a Sansa chapter. So,
I mean, that's, I think, is the best thing about it.
Yeah.
That it's what... It's smart thing about this point of view structure, because if this chapter was from Cersei's perspective, it'd be completely different. It would be like... Okay, and now, so now it's time for the Hound to get promoted because she arranged all this. So
Yeah.
she and Littlefinger and Varys and Pycelle all work together to like make up a schedule. Okay, now again on Slint, we're going to promote him. We're going to give out this award. He's going to receive this person. But it's interesting because it's from Sansa's perspective because she doesn't know any of that. She just sees it, and we have to infer that what's happening is kind of what happens after any new government. They're rearranging people. It's like when, Trump came into office, he fired the people who Obama appointed, and then he hired his own people.
Yeah.
This is the exact same thing. They're firing Varys and Selmy, who's been on the King's Guard forever and is too old, and they're hiring their guy. The Hound is their guy, so he's the one loyal to them, although they think he's loyal to them, but he'll do other stuff. They promote Janos Slint, who is the guy who helped betray Ned. He was in charge of the city guard, and he turned on Ned's men and had them killed in the king's room. And they give him a Harrenhal, which is a big old castle. And there's this nice bit where I'm gonna read it out loud, where proud lords whose houses went back thousands of years made way reluctantly for the balding, frog-faced commoner as he marched past. So Janos Slint is kind of like this new money guy who's being promoted for his service. But it's like any other government. This guy helped him on the campaign, basically. So, okay, we're going to give you a cushy position. And other people might not like it, that kind of thing. And again, the great thing about it is that Sansa just doesn't really know any of this stuff, but we can infer it. Like, there's a bit at the beginning where Sansa's like, she's in the Great Hall. There are about 20 lords here. Usually there are 80. It seems so quiet in here. And the question is, where are the rest of them? They're off joining Stannis. They're off joining Renly. They're off picking sides. But Sansa doesn't care about that. She is focused, understandably, on making the plea for her dad, where her priorities are right now.
Yeah, and the fact that all of this is happening in front of her eyes and she doesn't see it is perfect, because that's exactly how Cersei gets into power and is able to enact all of these plans that she has. Is she's doing it in broad daylight. She's not like she's going to some like secret meeting in the Legion of Doom or something like that and making all these things happen. It's happening in front of Sansa, in front of everybody. Like even the bit of like because Cersei is sticking to a script. She has an idea of what she wants to happen. And when Barristan goes off the rails and has his little moment and Joffrey gets bothered by it, Cersei has to step in and she reassures him. She's like, all right, don't worry about, and like, even that, it's like she is playing her script out. Cersei's playing her script out.
Mastering the thing.
And Sansa is oblivious, even though it's all happening right in front of her. And I mean, she's not looking for it, but that's the point. So that's great. I thought that was brilliant by George R.R. Martin.
How about Sansa's big moment, though? So her big ending moment of the chapter thing is she gets in front of there, she petitions Joffrey, she pleads for mercy, for clemency for Ned.
Oh, Sansa.
Yeah, she knows what she's doing. I don't think that this was part of the script either. I mean, I think she's just going there, but it's fun that Cersei quickly like sees it.
Yep.
It's like, okay, she's pleading for mercy. She still thinks Joffrey's a nice guy. Whatever, sweet girl. And she says, like, okay, maybe we can do that if Ned confesses. So she's seen a way out of this whole Robb situation, where if Ned just confesses his crimes and we send him back, that'll pacify everything, and then Joffrey can be in the throne and just keep it, and we can fight Stannis or whatever, but at least we won't have the Robb to deal with.
Yeah.
So that's what's in her. But again, like you said, it's under the surface. We have to infer that. I think it'd be fascinating to get this chapter like from Cersei's perspective, because it'd be completely different. She'd be like, where are those ungrateful 80 lords? I wonder where they are. I'm going to kill them all. Bring their necks. And then she smiled nicely and said, oh, Sansa, won't you do this? And so for Sansa, she's just making this impassioned plea. And Joffrey does promise that her words has moved him, and he will honor them. No, he's not going to do that.
Oh, Sansa. I almost like it better that we didn't get this from Cersei's perspective.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, we can picture all of those things going on in her head, but all we see is the smile. All we see is the superficial, what she's trying to put
like
forward.
The pageantry and just the script of it.
Yeah, well, it's like if you go back and reread the chapter, you can kind of get inside of Cersei's head without being in Cersei's head. So it was kind of a cool thing where it's like you're reading it and she's smiling, she's reassuring Joffrey and she's reassuring Sansa, but in her head she's doing what you just said, where she's like, she's working through it all. But because we can't see it, the inner workings of her head, that's what makes it so much more of a diabolical plan that she has going on here, because it is such a secret thing that she's doing.
Yeah. I will say I have my problems with the last 2 books, but the Cersei chapters are lit. Like 'cause she's just angry all the time, and it's so great and so much fun.
They should put that little quote on the back of the book. The Cersei chapters are lit.
They're
Dan
lit.
Selke.
They're lit as
Winter's
hell.
coming.
Tony says, I think this chapter is the first time Sansa is exposed to the politics involved in ruling and how a new power reorganizes the players in the game. I completely agree. I think it's something that's going over her head. But again, we're approaching the moment where she kind of has the rude awakening and has to pay more attention to what's actually going on. But that'll be soon enough. Any other... Oh, I had one more thought, which is like the focus on all the clothing in this chapter is, again, important just because, A, Sansa likes it. So she spends time thinking about what Joffrey's wearing, his plush velvet, whatever, and like she spent hours choosing her jewelry, yada, yada, yada. Because, again...
She's still romanticizing this Disney princess version of the world that she has. Meanwhile... all of these things are happening in front of her. That's why I think this is such a great chapter, because she still has, why it was so important, I guess it was told from Sansa's perspective, because she still has this glitzy, romantic version of what life should be like, and she is trying so hard to see those things that she's missing the ugliness that is happening and going on. Not that maybe she would have picked up on it because it's not obvious, but she's so distracted that it's not even on the radar.
Woo. At the same time, I mean, clothes are a part of what Cersei is planning too. Like, she dressed Joffrey like that for a reason. Yeah. She wants him to look royal and elegant and king-like and presentable. And Sansa chose what she chose and spent hours over it for a reason. She wants to appear demure and contrite and like someone you can have sympathy with. So she chose like a simple, I think the line was, I spent hours on my jewelry and I chose like a simple gold chain in the end, or silver chain, because I want to look like humble. And this whole chapter is theater. It's political theater, and she's a part of it. So the clothes are important, I think. But yeah, I love your point. Anyway, any other thoughts about this chapter, Sansa 5?
No, ready for the next batch here.
And Karen says that Joffrey ruined that plan, which he completely does. That Cersei's plan, Karen says, was for Sansa to plea for Ned. You know, the plan for him to go take the Black once he confessed. I don't think that Sansa pleading was part of Cersei's plan. If it was, we don't get any indication of it. But I do think it played into her plan nicely, or she was able to work it in. But maybe not. It's possible. Anyway, next week, let's hit the next Eddard chapter. I believe the last Eddard chapter ever.
Oh, wow.
It's not the execution, but it is, because this is a spoiler, but we don't see his execution from his point of view. We see it from someone else's.
Prayers up, Ned.
And then, what did you say?
Prayers up.
Prayers up. And then a Catelyn chapter after that, where we discuss Julie Davies' beautiful comment.
Yes.
All right, we'll be back here next week, guys, Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time to talk about more Game of Thrones, more Song of Ice and Fire. I guess you might be in here the whole time if Cheryl is gone.
I'm sitting in. You get a whole hour of me.
Me and Josh Hill talking your ear off about Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Hope to see you there. Thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely day.